boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. This is Just with Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things ready through a common sense lens. And well, apparently fans aren't exactly tossing a coin to their Witcher with the new series over there on Netflix, because the new season has come out and turned into an absolute disastrous dumpster fire. It's got some of the worst ratings. Well, it actually has the worst ratings the series has ever seen, which honestly just lines up with the kind of long, slow death that the series has seen, essentially from the beginning, because as we've happened to see so many times, especially over there at our dear sweet Netflix hires people and decides to buy the rights to an IP and decide to reimagine it in their own image out there. We have people out there like Lauren Hitchrich, who decides to come in and reshape things for a modern audience, and of course decide to get into arguments with Henry Cavill on set, because Henry Cavill actually knows the Witcher lore and loves the character. Well, we saw how all of that ended up collapsing. We saw how things just got worse and worse and worse as the series went on. Well, of course, at one point, Henry Cavill decided to finally get sick and tired of all of the nonsense, all of the garbage, and the disrespect to Geralt of Rivia's character, and decided to exit the scene out there. Now, of course, there was some reports coming around behind the scenes that, oh, he was so toxic and yada, yada, yada. But of course, those were countermanded very quickly by actual public and honest interviews by his fellow castmates, who said he was nothing but lovely and wonderful to work with the entire time, and they absolutely adore the man. Well, that time has now passed, and of course introduced Liam Hemsworth. Yes, the little brother to Chris Hemsworth, aka Marvel's Thor, out there, has now been introduced as the new series. And just as many of us suspected out there, and apparently even Hitchrich herself knew was going to come, this show has turned into a disastrous dumpster fire, has collapsed, and it's only a matter of time before all of this is officially announced as canceled. Because as you can see over here from geeksandgamers.com, The Witcher's ratings collapse. Season 4 viewership craters after Henry Cavill exit. Oh, color us shocked there, boys and girls. But it's something that reminded me of an issue that happened not too very long ago in the cultural insanity that we've been dealing with for the last decade or so. This reminded me of some of the situation where if you don't like my book, don't buy it, because just not too long ago, the showrunner Lauren Hitchrich said, "The Witcher showrunner defends the Netflix series. Changes says books and video games still exist, so everyone can have their version." Well, clearly the majority of Witcher fans and the general audiences out there have decided to reject Lauren's abomination of a version of Witcher, and have made sure it turned into the next disastrous dumpster fire and ratings collapse and failure for Netflix. And after all, boys and girls, it couldn't happen to a nicer group of jerkwads now, could it? So we're checking this article from geeksandgamers.com, but obviously everybody's been talking about this. The Samba TV numbers are out there in the public, and of course, Cosmic Book News as well. But I feel like doing our Geeks and Gamers one today. So we're going to check out this article, get all of the juicy details, and see exactly how bad these numbers really are and what the future of this show holds. But before we do, and of course, all of the documented disastrous dumpster fire history of how we got here. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2,300. We're inching our way towards 24 on our journey to 100,000. I think we're sitting at like 2,380, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. What do you think about all this? Does it surprise you at all? Did you see this coming from a mile away, that the series was going to absolutely collapse after fan favorite Henry Cavill left? Do you think this has a lot more to do with Henry Cavill leaving, or do you think it has to do with a lot of the changes that have been made to the source material with the storytelling they've been putting on the screen over there at Netflix? Does it surprise you at all that Lauren preempted this disastrous dumpster fire by saying, well, everybody gets their own version, because she knew how bad this was actually going to go? Or are you loving the new direction and you're one of the Lauren acolytes out there who love the devastation and you're so glad that toxic male Henry Cavill is gone? Let us know what you in the comment section down below. If you support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. All right, boys and girls, from our dear sweet Marvin Montanaro over at geeksandgamers.com, one of his new homes out there. Some franchises think they can swap the lead, change the tone, and push the audience in a new direction without consequences. Oh, you mean like the majority of Hollywood and everybody's that controlled an IP that involved nerds and geeks because they thought we were just a bunch of morons and idiots out there that would suck up whatever they threw at us? Yeah, how'd that work out? And it always boggled my mind. You're talking about people that can remember facts and figures from comic books and issues from 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. It's people that can memorize and learn Elvish, people that learn Klingon. And you guys thought you were smarter than us? Pride before the fall, after all. And guess what? The Witcher has definitely fallen. According to viewership ratings, Netflix's The Witcher just learned this isn't how this works. The Witcher's ratings for season 4 are in, and they're brutal. According to Samba TV's public numbers, the season 4 premiere was watched by 577,000 U.S. households, compared to 885,000 for season 3. That's a 35% drop right out the gate. Not a wobble, not a stumble, a cliff dive the moment Henry Cavill stepped away. And this is right here from Samba's own post. The Witcher is back, and with Liam Hemsworth at the helm, the first episode of season 4 was watched by 35% less households than season 3, currently ranked as the series' lowest rated season yet on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, we'll get to those Rotten Tomatoes score. As always, like we say, the audience decides what succeeds and what fails. Not Netflix executives, and certainly not Lauren Hitchrich, boys and girls. But of course, there's some desperate fans that still want to see how it goes, but not near as many as they were when Henry Cavill was around. Now, was it? This isn't the fans warming up to the new guy or waiting to see what happens. When you lose more than a third of your premiere audience before episode 1 finishes, the audience isn't undecided. They left. That's right, because Netflix drops all of us at once, boys and girls, but the Samba TV numbers cover all of that. This is not as bad as Rings of Power, who lost over half their audience from season 1 to season 2, but it's definitely up there. And we know how those things are going. You don't shed 35% of your viewership because people are curious. You shed it because they're not interested anymore. Cavill carried the fan base. They told Netflix that for years. Netflix pretended it didn't matter. It mattered. A huge part of this collapse didn't happen overnight. It was years in the making. Long before Henry Cavill walked, viewers were already sounding alarms about the show drifting away from its monster hunting roots and grounded, grim tone. I mean, did you watch season 1? You were basically watching a story in reverse, and you were watching 2 stories that wouldn't even come to a head and make any sense as to what was really going on until the very end. I mean, yeah, the Witcher scenes with Henry Cavill going out there and doing what a Witcher's supposed to do, killing monsters and getting paid. Like, yeah, those were wonderful and those were great. Everything else was pretty much boring. Now, I will give you right there, though, Yennefer, woo, what an actress for her. What an actress for her. We'll probably put her on the thumbnail if I remember. Instead of doubling down on Geralt, the moral ambiguity, and the harsh fantasy realism that define The Witcher across mediums, the creative direction, Lauren Hitchrich, shifted towards restructuring the story around female empowerment arcs and modern ideological themes. I mean, literally in the second season, there's an entire story arc that is dedicated to Yennefer trying to regain her ability to have babies, boys and girls. And although as a guy who is very much all for more people having more babies, it definitely did not feel right or appropriate in a Witcher series. Now, maybe that's an actual arc from the books. I don't know. I haven't read them. But the way they went about it, and considering the fact of how much time it took up in the story and away from Henry Cavill just going out there and killing monsters, it was definitely very upsetting. And don't get me wrong, I love seeing as much of that Yennefer actress on screen as possible, boys and girls, but still. The pivot just didn't subvert expectations, it ignored them entirely. Audiences came for a weathered warrior battling beasts and fate, not a replaced ensemble drama built to showcase messaging over myth. The priority moved from the world building and gritty heroism to spotlighting chosen ones. You know, kind of like Disney Star Wars. Reylos, anyone? Rewriting arcs to elevate secondary characters and treating Geralt as a supporting place in his own tale. When Cavill reportedly pushed back in defense of the source material, fans saw that as validation of their concerns. And when he left, many saw it as the final saw the show wasn't coming back to what made it special. And that's why it comes down to, right? That's a giant sign. If your mega fan of a franchise leaves a series in a lead role of a character that he absolutely adores and loves, that's all most fans need to know. That's all most audiences need to know. You don't even have to have heard any of the rumors. You don't have to have heard any of the stuff going behind the scenes. You don't have to pay attention to channels like this or any of the rest of them out there. That right there, if you know anything about Henry Cavill and his love for The Witcher or for any of the rest of the IPs he's involved with, you'll know exactly what that means. And that right there is going to be a giant sign. If you hadn't already checked out after by the third season, you were definitely not going to have a desire, because at the end of the day, Henry Cavill was the only thing holding the show alive. His scenes were arguably the only decent scenes in a good, massive portion of that show, boys and girls, in a massive portion of that show. Whether Netflix wants prestige vibes, social brownie points, or simply the brand was indestructible, the result is the same. The core audience didn't follow, and the numbers show it. This wasn't just a casting change. It was a fully identity rewrite. And when a franchise abandons the values and tone that earned its audience, those fans don't stick around out of loyalty. They move on. And this is where things get really bad. Lowest ratings in history. Top critics, 33%. Audience score, 20%. 1,000+ ratings. A 1.65 from the fans. That is pathetic. That is unheard of. That is on acolyte levels, okay, of bad, boys and girls. And that was a series that Disney canceled less than a month after the finale aired, boys and girls. This is on that level of bad. Hey, Lauren. Yeah, I think you're right. Everybody's definitely going to have their own version, and it's not going to be this one. You have book fans, you have video game fans, and then you have fans that knew nothing about this world until the show existed. And the truth is, we can't choose one audience. We have to remember what we're doing, which is a television show. It's different than any other genre and any other form that you could tell this story. And we have to make choices for that. We have 8 hours every season to tell these stories, and we're never going to tell everything from the books. Fair enough. I agree with you. You're right. You can't tell everything, right? Arguably the greatest movie trilogy of all time, The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson, leaves out the Scouring of the Shire, leaves out Tom Bombadil, and a lot of other things that a lot of fans wanted in the story. I think not having the Scouring of the Shire is an issue. But at the end of the day, I don't understand. They have a limited amount of time. But fans didn't show up to The Witcher for Yennefer and Ciri's story. They showed up to The Witcher for a Witcher, which you chose not to give them. And they chose to make sure that your show collapsed and failed miserably and turned into another multi-hundreds of millions of dollars disastrous dumpster fire for Netflix. And it's exactly what you deserve. It's exactly what you deserve. Henry Cavill wasn't just an actor playing Geralt. He was the reason people trusted the adaptation. It's the reason why I'm excited about the Warhammer 40K adaptation from Amazon. Despite everything that's happened with Rings of Power and Lord of the Rings, I trust Henry Cavill. And we know he has, not only is he starring, but he has huge, massive amounts of creative control. He's an executive producer. He's part of the show running team, the whole nines, right? The writing team, everything. That's one of the reasons why I'm excited for it, because fans trust Henry Cavill, because we know he is one of us, right? He proves that with all of his nerd stuff that he posts and he talks about all of the time. He proves that by defending us to the insane Hollywood reporters out there that would otherwise have everybody in Hollywood just bash us as dumb, ignorant, stupid nerds, right? When it turns out at the end of the day, despite their dismissal of all of us, we are the ones that decide what succeeds and what fails, and no amount of virtue signaling or the modern messaging will change that. We don't want this. Witcher fans want The Witcher doing Witcher stuff, not an entire series, not an entire season about Yennefer trying to regain her ability to procreate, boys and girls. Am I wrong? Let me know. Please. Let me know. People aren't hate watching. They aren't doom scrolling the show out of morbid curiosity. They're not watching it at all. And that's the worst case scenario for any big budget streamer. Apathy, the death nail to any IP. Netflix bet the franchise could survive without Cavill and without the tone that made the series popular through books and video games, and that bet just came due. Without The Witcher ratings collapsing and the verified 35% premiere viewership drop, the verdict is clear. Netflix thought it could replace the heart of the series and lecture fans into loving the new version. The fans replaced the show instead, and the numbers proved it. And this is beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it's really funny, too, because we'll have to see how CD Projekt Red's next video game goes for this one, too, where it's going to be all about Ciri and that one, too. And if they do it right, I think a lot of The Witcher fans will trust CD Projekt enough, Red, to show up and at least try the game, right? But if it ends up being more of this exact same kind of modern messaging like what we've seen with The Witcher series from Netflix, then it's going to collapse and fail because this stuff doesn't sell, right? It doesn't work. Female protagonists have always been a thing as long as you do them properly and treat them with respect and don't turn them into nothing more than a man-hating alpha female thing where all of the guys around her are morons and she has to fix everything. We saw that with Rings of Power. Rings of Power is one of the epitomes of that, right? We're led to believe she's this great soldier. She's this great general, which, by the way, of course, was never her character in Tolkien's work at all. But we're led to believe she's this great general. But at the exact same time, in her first opening scene, you show how much of an incompetent leader she is. Because while the rest of her team is cowering away from some giant monster, she jumps in and takes this monster out with a single blow. According to the story, she's been with this crew for 1,000 years, at least hundreds of years, doing all of this kind of stuff. Yet in all of that time, because they're all elves, she's failed to train any of her men to even come close to being up to her level, right? At all? No. It's not believable because the majority of this writing nowadays with these IPs that these psychopaths like Lauren get a hold of are nothing more than bad Tumblr fan fiction. It's what they wanted these stories to be. It's what they imagined these characters doing instead of who these characters actually were. And that's what it's always been to these people. They never cared about these IPs. They were just some hot guy or some hot girl or some character that they fell in love with because of looks, despite them saying, oh, beauty's on the inside and beautiful at all sides, right? They got hots for these characters. And they had all kinds of crazy fantasies in their head about them being the bad boy for them and yada, 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 and every other bad, garbage, romance drivel shit that's taken over the fantasy series out there in the world, right? We know what we're talking about. You guys have seen it. Biggest mistake Yahoo ever made was making Tumblr family friendly. So all the freaks had to run off of there and go to other places. And the worst part is freaks like those, like Lauren, ended up getting control of one of the most popular franchises, one of the most successful franchises from the modern gaming industry out there. And now they've turned it into a disastrous dumpster fire. When you have the opportunity to expand the fan base, expand and bring more people in, people that pick up the books that had never read them before, people that pick up the games that had never played them before. Instead, you decided to dance with the devil in the pale moonlight and believe all of his lies. How all of us nerds and geeks and gamers and fans are just a bunch of ignorant, stupid losers who you can shove in a locker and move on with your life hanging out with the prom king. And hey, guess what? It turns out all them losers, all them nerds and all them geeks are actually the ones with all the power. Because despite your arrogance, your narcissism, and your pride, it turns out that yes, 2 + 2 still equals 4. God is still on his throne in heaven, up is still up, and down is still down, and fans decide. Fans built these IPs. Geeks, nerds, losers with too much time on their hands that just hang out in their parents' basement. We're the ones that spent our hard-earned money on these. We're the ones that spent hours of our lives, in some people's cases, years of their lives, obsessing over this stuff and making it great, making it wonderful, and making it successful as possible. And you instead, Lauren, decided to ignore all of that. You decided to instead try to shove your own agenda and use Geralt of Rivia and Henry Cavill alongside as nothing more than a talking point and a messaging board for your bullshit agenda. And just like every other project and just like every other IP that has been taken over by the spirit of the age, go woke, go broke gets proven true once again. So enjoy it, Netflix. Liam, I've heard some sketchy things about you behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, nobody deserves to have this kind of garbage thrown on them because this is Netflix and Lauren Hitchritz's fault. You ignored the fans. You chased the modern audience, and you danced with the devil in the pale moonlight, and you believed all of his lies. How'd that work out for you? Because now Witcher Season 4 minus Henry Cavill is the biggest disastrous dumpster fire Netflix has seen in a very long time. And guess what? You did it to yourselves. And it's exactly what you deserve. Netflix's Witcher is dead and over, boys and girls. A big shout out to all of our subscribers and members out there. Thanks for watching, and make sure you guys like and subscribe if you have not already.